What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty Podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. Got the ticker working today. Gonna have a great Wednesday here for you guys here in Blog and Dirty Bird Nation. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, give this thing a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. It really helps the show grow. Currently, we're at 383 subscribers. Let's get to 500 before the start of the season. Put 5 on it. Maybe get to 1,000. So we can do a lot of really cool and exciting things here on the show. I did the graphic today, so that's exciting. And obviously, every time I had the intro music, which I also created, that always gets me fired up. It's like my version of something that My Morning Jacket would do. One of my all-time favorite bands. Got a poster of them over there on my wall in my living room. But got an exciting show for you guys today. We always do. Got a lot to talk about here. Let's not dilly-dally. Let's not beat around the bush. Let's get started here with our first run of the day. Win or lose, the Atlanta Falcons crushed it with their 2026 NFL schedule release. I loved it. I loved every second of it. Look, I predominantly cover college football and college sports these days. So, my NFL focus is strictly with this team, which I think y'all seem to really appreciate and enjoy. We're in this together. There are no bandwagon fans left. We're in this for the long haul, y'all. Anyway, the schedule release, for me, like in years past, this is not something that I really enjoy. There's a few things in sports that, aren't my cup of tea. I don't like all-star games. I hated the Pro Bowl. I absolutely loathe the home run derby. But I also realize I'm a 36-year-old man. I'm not a kid anymore. Your tastes change. What you like, what you enjoy is different. And look, we already knew who the Falcons were going to be playing team-wise, venue-wise. We are playing the Bengals in Madrid, so get excited for that. Have some pinchos. I wonder, how the Falcons are going to handle tapas food over there. It's going to be unbelievable. If you're in Spain, definitely go check that out. If not, try to get over there. Europe's cool. Go check that place. Go check that continent out. Anyway, the schedule release is usually the time for the Chargers to shine. There's some organizations that don't put forth as genuine of an effort. And I will be honest with you, some years for the Falcons, it's been hit or miss. Last couple of years have been great. Last year, you had Mario Kart. 2 years ago, you had NBA Street. And I remember those mostly because, I'm a Falcons fan. But this year, it's a new regime, it's a new era, and they kind of went with This is Sports Center, the series of commercials we saw in the 2000s. And for a millennial like myself, who grew up watching Sports Center before he went to middle school and high school, this was amazing. I love the fact that it sets the tone off perfectly. Matt Ryan's in the war room at a conference talking about what's going on. Somebody in the background is not paying attention, and he tells him to get effing set. I love that. I love how Matt Ryan leans into that moment. That was the last time we made the playoffs. I think we're playing the Buccaneers on a Thursday night, 2017, and Mohamed Sanu was lined up. But it's become part of Falcons lore, and I absolutely love it. I think it's one of the better things. It kind of just shows, how locked in Matt Ryan was. I mean, he was like our Peyton Manning light. Peyton Manning is one of the greatest of all time, and Matt Ryan's one of the greatest of all time too. Let's get him in Canton, baby. Anyway, I love how this also goes back to when he did he did the same exact play call from a time that he did This is Sports Center back when he was playing. He's wearing his old the white away uniform and everything like that up in Bristol. It's great. I love that they had a lot of notable faces for the Falcons. I loved how Kevin Stefanski really leaned into it. You kind of wonder if this no-nonsense type of head coach is going to come in here and going to subscribe to it. He was all in. I think he basically did the perfect sort of I know this is a joke, but I'm going to make this – I'm going to do a good job here. And he absolutely crushed it in his role there too. Loved having a Jalon Walker bark at people like a dog, channeling his inner Georgia stuff. And again, I don't bark at people, but when you're pumping gas and you see some stupid LSU fan or whatever team you don't like in the SEC just walk by, it's gonna bark at them. You can also bark at them at a bridge, Jacksonville, but we won't be back there for a while because they're renovating that place. Jags are playing in Orlando. Georgia is going to be playing in Atlanta this year. Florida is going to be playing Georgia and Tampa, I think, in 2 years, while the Jags stadium gets renovated and everything like that. But You have, the Hey Drake, Meet Kendrick, and this came out like right before Drake dropped a terrible album. You can just like what I said about that. I don't know. I'm just playing. I'm just trying to play both sides of it. I just thought that was hilarious. Obviously, Jesse Bates picks off a piece of paper or whatever it is. That was fantastic. Bijan Robinson has like two signs up there on his cubicle saying Bijan Robinson and B Robinson. They couldn't pronounce either. But I also think it was very interesting and very telling, like who they featured in this. I think anytime that a person is front and center in a big, uniform reveal, or a schedule release, or you're on the program or whatnot, these are pillars for your organization from a player perspective. And I'll get to this here in a second when it comes to Drake London and Bijan Robinson, but like the guys that are going to be franchise cornerstones for the foreseeable future under this new regime of Ryan, Stefanski, and Cunningham, they were front and center in this commercial. Obviously, Kyle Pitts is in the contract year. He's played under franchise tag. Obviously, James Pierce Jr.'s got his legal situation he's got to figure out. Jake Matthews is getting up there in age. There's other players out there too where, you didn't see Chris Lindstrom in there. Maybe he didn't come down. Maybe, again, like, not everybody's in the city and everything like that. No, Michael Penix Jr. just got married, but obviously, there's other things at play here. Who is featured in these commercials? Who is featured in like these releases and everything like that? That speaks volumes. But I would say, like, of the other schedule releases, I really loved the Raiders doing Step Brothers with Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza. It's nice to see him be a mentor, I guess. He kind of was a little bit here, but he kind of got blindsided by that. But look, I think this is an opportunity for the creative teams, the social media stuff for each organization to go out there and have a really good time. This is their Super Bowl, and I think it's great. Like, this is something that, like, you can build pride, you can build fan equity within your fan base and your organization. It's all about making new fans. And I'm not saying that the Falcons doing something like This Is Sports is going to make them new fans, but like it has like the players more front and center. Like, okay, these are the stars of the team. These are the guys that if the Falcons are going to win, this is because of them. And I just enjoyed this. I loved everything about it. I think somebody probably threw that idea out in a meeting, like, let's run with this. Again, this wasn't easy. It was kind of more about like around the office sort of banter and everything like that. Obviously, we live in a post-COVID world where not everybody works in office. I mean, I work from home. Most of my colleagues work from home. Most of my Minute Media colleagues work from home. That's just the way it goes here. Sales team basically kind of goes out of New York. Again, we're an international company. People work all over the place. But just to it was nostalgic to a time where things were simpler. Things were there was optimism a lot more in the world than it is right now. Maybe it's because I've gotten older, but like I think fondly back at that time growing up in the 2000s and in suburban Atlanta when the Falcons had Michael Vick, and then eventually when I got to college, they got Matt Ryan, and some of the best years were kind of like the Falcons football were in and around that era from like 2000 to like 2015. So again, congratulations to putting forth an absolutely fantastic schedule release. I love it when people do really cool ideas and bring them to life. Again, as a creative person, can't say enough good things about it. And on that note, let's move on to our second run of the day here with this. I mentioned Drake London and Bijan Robinson, where they were both featured in the commercial with very prominent roles. But that leads me to believe that they're going to be prioritized and they're going to get extensions. Take a sip of coffee real quick. I'll do that again before the midline ad before our first pass. Every time I do one of these, I read it the prompter. I'm like, I hope I typed it out right. I hope I didn't make any spelling errors. I mean, this thing's bouncing on a book right now. Behind the scenes here with the Blog and Dirty podcast, I appreciate each and every one of you. But look, when you have players like Drake London and Bijan Robinson, the guys you've invested a first-round pick on, even if it was part of a previous regime, when they're playing up to their standard, they're as good as they can get. Like Bijan, we think he's arguably the best running back in football. He's LaDainian Tomlinson 2.0. You idolized him. Got to get him into the playoffs, man. You can't waste that talent. Obviously, Drake London's probably the closest thing to Mike Evans. And Mike Evans is a future Hall of Famer. We saw what he's done for decades, with the Buccaneers. I forget where he is now, but that's just a tremendously sensational player. one of my peers, maybe a few years younger than me, out of A&M, just a fantastic player. When you have guys like that in their prime who are still under rookie contracts, who are going to be pillars of your organization, and I'm going to use the Buccaneers as a perfect example. You know, they had a long playoff drought. Like, they didn't make the playoffs from like what 07 to 2020. They really circled the drain there. You know, Raheem Morris was obviously coach there for a while. I had Greg Schiano. You had Lovie Smith. The first Bruce Arians year was a lot of Jameis Winston throwing picks. But Jason Light kind of came in there and brought some level of stability to the front office. They drafted people. And even though Jameis proved to be a goofball, he was a guy that they like. People like him. He's going to have a fantastic career in media when this is all said and done. I don't know what he's going to do. He's going to do something great. People thought the world of Mike Evans, and everything you hear about guys like Drake London and Bijan Robinson, their character is, as good as their play. You want to have players like this in your building. Same with Chris Lindstrom. When you have, AJ Terrell, Jake Matthews, when you have high-end people, high-end character, it makes winning when you do that much better. And when losing, it doesn't sting as bad. Look, obviously this is football. These are people. People are complicated. Not everybody is going to be a saint. There are sinners everywhere, you and I and everybody else. It's just the world we live in. There's going to be bad seeds on every team you root for. Just accept that. Just accept that these are flawed individuals that are really good at athletics in one sport in particular. It's the way it goes. Not going to name names. We all know who that is, each on every team. But when it comes to Drake and Bijan Robinson, like, Ian Cunningham doesn't take this job in the event that he's going to trade either of him. Like, neither of these players are going to play for another team while they're still in their prime. You do that, you're never going to be a GM again if it fails here. Most often, you only get one opportunity to do this. This isn't like head coaching, where like Stefanski had a lot of success, relatively speaking, at Cleveland. It hit the fan, and then he basically rebounded there with the Falcons. We saw Robert Saleh fail with the Jets. Now he's with the Titans. John Harbaugh had a great run there with the Ravens. It got stale. Now he's with the Giants. These things happen all the time. I mean, for Christ's sake, Mike McCarthy's on his third team. He wasn't really good with the Cowboys, but he gets to coach his hometown Steelers, which I think is pretty cool for that. Maybe they're very much going to be a team that's going to go 10-7 and lose in the first round. They haven't won a playoff game since TJ Watt got drafted there a decade ago. But look, when you have players like London and Robinson who have established some stuff that you drafted them, they're the first team you played for. Not to necessarily say they deserve to be loyal to you, but these are the type of guys that, like, if you're not loyal to them, you don't want them part of your organization, then what legs do you honestly have to stand on? I know it's going to be complicated. I know their deals are going to be very pricey. I know, obviously, what Drake London's got to deal with, like, what I think Gary Wilson's getting paid. I think with the Jets a couple of years ago, that really shot that up. Obviously, Bijan Robinson's got to deal with Breece Hall getting paid. We'll figure this out. And I think the best part is Ian Cunningham learned from a lot of really good front office executives here. I mean, he learned from Ryan Poles, who, went to school with Matt Ryan, who's a BC guy. Learned from one of the best cap guys out there, Brett Veach. Obviously, Howie Roseman's one of the best drafters of all time with the Eagles. And then, obviously, Cunningham first came in and learned from Ozzie Newsome, probably one of the greatest general managers of all time. And then, obviously, Eric DeCosta has been fantastic there for Baltimore as well. These guys aren't playing anywhere else. They're here, and we're going to be excited to see them play out their entire primes here with the Atlanta Falcons, just kind of waiting to see, when a pen goes to paper. And on that note, let's get going with our third pass. Got to take my sip of coffee, and we'll get going with the second half of the show. I'm going to pass on the notion of, the Mike and the Mad Dog. That's a win. That's a loss for this season. That's not going to fly for me. Let's take this one game at a time, please. Maybe it's just because I've gotten older. Maybe just because I've been burned by this so many times. Maybe it's because I'm spending more of my focus in the college division right now as opposed to the NFL. But I don't really have time to sit down and go through every team's schedule and, somehow convince myself that the Vikings are going to go 4-13 or the Titans are going to go 3-14. or we're going to somehow go 12-5 and win the NFC South and play the NFC South or the NFC Championship game. You do that. There's teams like the Chiefs like, oh, they're going to go 14-3. Then they had a worse season than us. Granted, Mahomes got hurt, and that's what happens sometimes. But look, here's my thoughts on this. There's 7 teams that are going to make the playoffs out of the NFC and AFC in each respective conference. For the time being, the NFC South is only going to get 1 team in. I would be stunned if the NFC West doesn't get 2. You have the Seahawks, who just won the Super Bowl. The 49ers are a high-end team. And obviously, the Rams have a lot of talent going for them. NFC North could be a little bit more of a jumbled mess. Again, I still don't think very highly of the Vikings. Green Bay's kind of got a finite ceiling right now. We'll see what happens with them. Chicago's firing all cylinders, but that's an organization that doesn't build on one good year after another. Then obviously Detroit, we'll see if they can respond to having coaching attrition. In the NFC East, the Eagles are still really solid. The Giants have to be better because they've sucked for a long time. Cowboys could be interesting. And then obviously, do you trust the Commanders? So maybe there could potentially be more than one spot available in the NFC South. The problem is, I think any team can win the division this year, including the Saints. And again, maybe I'm building them up to see them fail, which I think would be great. We did sweep them last year, but they did seem to hit on Tyler Shuck at quarterback. Granted, he's the last guy to be drafted with a 1 in his birth year. His birth year starts with 1, so that's great. Let's party like it's 1999 there in the Shuck house. Anyway, I think Kellen Moore is a good head coach. I think Doug Nussmeier is a really savvy offensive mind. Mickey Loomis has been calling the shots in the front office for a long time. They kind of rebuild it a little bit there. Maybe they can be really good. Obviously, I think we have the most talented team potentially in the NFC South. The problem is the quarterback room is kind of unstable a little bit. We got 2 lefties with Michael Penix Jr. and Tua Tagovailoa. We'll touch on that here just a second. Carolina won the division with a sub-500 record. It's going to come down to if Bryce Young's really good. He may just be the Sam Bradford of his generation. The Heisman winner who makes a lot of money, doesn't win as much as he should, and then he disappears at 31. We never see him again. But obviously Tampa's kind of been the best team in the division. They have the best quarterback in Baker Mayfield. I think that's been established. Really good GM. The problem is the roster is getting old. And more importantly, how last year ended for the Bucs really put a sour taste in their mouth. We'll see I think they'll be better. But again, I don't think more than 11 games wins this division. Granted, I think the worst team in this division is going to still win 6 or 7 games. Let's just put it that. So I'm not gonna lose my mind over what somebody's saying the Falcons could go 5-12. I don't really care. Maybe in time I'll do my schedule and I'll figure this out once we get closer to the season. But look, we have a new regime, we have a new head coach, we have a new GM, we have a new president of football, a position that didn't exist prior to Matt Ryan taking over. We have a veteran quarterback coming in, and Tua Tagovailoa. We got Penix in year 3. A lot of guys in this team have been in the league for a while. I think this is going to be year 4 for Bijan, year 5 for Drake, year 6 for Pitts. Willistrom's coming up on a decade. Terrell's coming up on a decade. And Jake Matthews has been here for over a decade. And it's the Blog and Dirty podcast. Take it one game at a time. Win the games that you can. If you can't win them all. That's okay. I'm hopeful that we can make the playoffs. It'd be absolutely fantastic if we did. But again, there are things that could potentially get in the way of that happening. Now in 2027, I think that's when we got to know if this team's going to do it or not. We can only hope. And on that note, let's get out of here with some punt. I'm not really sure who's going to win the starting job between Penix and Tua out of camp. The most logical thing is Penix is still working his way back from injury. They're going to allow Tua to be the starter for at least a little while Penix gets more and more healthy. If and when Tua plays poorly, they'll put Penix in there, and then they'll ride out as long as they can. They'll keep Trevor Siemian on the roster in case injuries happen to these two guys, because let's be real, they're very injury-prone players. Tua's got a lot of concussions. I still feel like it's my worst nightmare that he's here in some ways. I talk so much trash about him with the Dolphins. He does throw a beautiful spiral, though, and was very talented for Alabama. He also gave me 2nd and 26, which thank you for that. Go Dogs. Keely Ringo rectified that a couple years later, so I'm okay. And then also the Penix thing is like, we got to know if he can do it, because if he can't do it, then this upcoming draft in 27, we will have a first round pick. Maybe we go after a quarterback. I don't know whom that's going to be. That could be Arch Manning. That could be Dante Moore. That could be Julian Sand. That could be CJ Carr. Hell, it could even be Gunnar Stockton or Trinidad Chambliss. There's a lot of guys out there in college. It could be Lenore Sellers, like Sam Levitt. There's so many quarterbacks. Josh Hoover. There's so many quarterbacks out there that I can just rattle off that like could be the guy for us. But again, you have to understand that what the college game gives you is not a finished product. A lot of people were like, Penix didn't take snaps under center because he didn't feel comfortable. Maybe Zach Robinson didn't feel comfortable calling plays under center. That was arguably the biggest travesty, I think, from a year ago, was if we were in the pistol with Bijan behind or Algier behind Penix, it was a run. If they were in shotgun where he's lined up on either side of them, it's probably a pass. And again, I didn't play football really. I mean, just a little bit in the backyard a little bit. If I can tell what's going on, these guys who are professionals who have dedicated their entire lives to coaching and playing this profession, they're going to see these tells that we can't do. This isn't college football where like you can just have so much talent. Like more often than not, Georgia's going to beat Kentucky. It's just the way it goes. Every so often, maybe they'll win, but 2009 was a long time ago. Go Dogs. Or you're just the NFL. I mean, the best, like I say this all the time, the best team of the league versus the worst team of the league. I would say right now, okay, let's just say who's a team I think really high level. Let's say Buffalo. Let's say Buffalo's really good, although they got a new head coach. Versus one of the worst teams in the league, let's say the Titans. And if they're playing in Orchard Park. What's the spread? Like 17 points to the Bills, maybe? I don't even think it would be that high. I don't think it would be that, the range would be that big. And there's a non-zero chance that Tennessee could win that game. These margin for error in the NFL is just razor thin. That's why, gambling's had a stranglehold on the American public. This is why the red zone's been great. This is why people love the NFL. Every game is close. Anything can happen. There's always one game every year where like, how the hell did this happen? The Falcons losing to the Jets. We're like, that's so dumb. Or, the Falcons beating the Bills. That was wild. These things happen all the time. But here's what I'll say about this. Penix taking some snaps under center in the early part of OTAs, minicamp, I guess, is what it would probably be. I'm getting my terms all screwed up. He's only about like six months removed from tearing his ACL versus Carolina. Again, no contact. We'll see what happens. But, like, everybody can do it. I saw Tua was playing some golf. Maybe that was beforehand. Again, I'm not going to throw him under the bus there. But, like, I would venture to guess all things equal, Tua's probably going to start. But I think Penix is right there. Penix might be a little bit hungrier. Granted, I think both these players are very hungry. I think Simeon's a little bit hungry too. Having a hungry quarterback room is going to serve this team, because there was a guy when I was growing up who was very hungry that always kind of got replaced. That was Chris Chandler. That was the guy where like they were always looking to replace him with somebody else throughout the draft process. I mean, hell, we replaced him with Michael Vick. But whenever he got an opportunity to run, he usually made the most of it. He played his best football year with Falcons, got us to our first Super Bowl, 2 Pro Bowls. Dan Reeves believed in him, and I still believe in you, Chris Chandler. Oh, man. I don't know, man. Let's get out of here. And this was episode 93 of the Blog and Dirty Podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter at X, at Buhler118. You can follow along with the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow along on Twitter at Blog and Dirty. Be sure to like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give this thing a 5-star review. It really helps the show grow. Again, 383 subscribers. Want to get to 400? I'm going to get to 500. Man, hell, I want to get to 4 digits before I die. I think we all want things to happen. That would be absolutely fantastic here. Again, I had a blast talking to you guys about this. Going to get this thing turned around here pretty quickly. Should have this up on YouTube here before the top of the hour. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.